Marvelous. Okay, so well, it's very exciting to be here and in illustrious company with Anna also speaking, as Anna was our lead facilitator on the AI Stewardship Summit. So that's a very nice team thing as well today. I'm speaking on behalf of the Features and Dialogue team, which I lead here at the Royal Academy of Engineering. Um, we are part of the wider engineering policy team, and our work is specifically about finding ways to engage with people and communities that are outside of the world of professional engineering. So this particular project developed or began around about 2 years ago, around the time that the government's AI Safety Summit first came about. Um, and we felt that amongst many other organizations that it was rather a little exclusive. And so we began thinking about what we could offer at the Academy that would be different. And we developed this concept of a series of summits. The first one was in Belfast in March 2024, with the idea of how could we bring together local people with the people who are also innovating and building AI technologies, as well as people doing research on AI, regulators from local and regional government and authorities, and other people involved in the AI sector, whether from NGOs or industry. So, a little bit about the Royal Academy of Engineering. We've recently released a new 5-year strategy, and we have these three major goals about what the Academy aims to do as part of its work. And one is looking at engineering in service of sustainable and innovative economy. Another is around supporting engineering community fit for the future. So very much about making sure that the engineers who are behind engineering really do reflect the diversity of the UK population and also internationally. And the one that we particularly sit within, not exclusively, but the technology improving lives. How can we ensure that the engineering solutions, the engineering technologies, and the infrastructure changes, which are vast in our society at the moment, are actually improving life for all, not just specific groups. So our work at the Futures and Dialogue team is to kind of create spaces for dialogue to enable this, to enable engineers to also hear from people whose lives are different, whose lived experience are perhaps very, very far from the world of professional engineering and also government and the various other sectors that we interact with. We particularly want to do that so that we can stimulate debates amongst the public, but also amongst engineers and the other allied sectors and professions. And obviously, through that process, to generate insights that enable technology to not necessarily be seen as a single roadmap, but as something which has branching pathways. There are many ways it could go, and that the innovation that then results is meaningful to people in really direct ways. So, as I said, around about 2 years ago, we began this process of thinking about what could the academy do in this space that would enhance and augment many of the other, really uh, quite brilliant deliberative forums and platforms that have been evolving over the last few years. And so one of the things the Academy has, it has a series of regional enterprise hubs as it's beginning to build a presence outside of London from where its headquarters is. So we realized we could use these spaces as a sort of the initial launch points for connecting with communities who are not drawn from um, people who are involved in or working with the technology industry, so to speak, and we can engage them in these different places, not just urban folk, but people from the suburbs around the city and also rural communities to come and talk about these things in a really serious way, but where also their views, their hopes, their fears would be taken seriously. So, over 5 events between March 2024 and July this year, we did 5 events that were one day public dialogue set piece events in Belfast, Glasgow, Liverpool, Swansea, and then finally here at the Academy's headquarters in London. We ended up recruiting 148 members of the public from really broad demographics spread, as well as bringing 90 of these stakeholders that I mentioned. So people who the Academy supports, fellows, awardees, and other stakeholders from academia, policy, government, and industry. So we're thinking about, well, what did this achieve? Um, and I think one of the things that we can really say is that by hosting these events as the Academy, but alongside lots of other things, we're able to offer these really tangible insights about what this number of members of the public feel about key topics that are coming up in the wider AI debates, things specifically about sustainability. So we've talked a lot about the energy resource use, the use of other resources like water in data center cooling, other issues about assurance, like how do we know that the tools are ethically sourced, that the models are drawing their data from responsible and ethical sources, they're not exploiting. So we were able to kind of present these issues to the public and discuss them, and also get members of the public to talk and communicate in ways uh, with experts in the field where there was a genuine, not exactly an equal status, but there was an equitable nature or in the discussions. People were able to share their experiences, their knowledge, um, both from expert and non-expert views in a way that meaningfully built on each other. And we also found from the people working in the industry that for them this was refreshing too. They heard views and opinions. They also heard about people's experiences from lives that are very different to their own, and people coming from different backgrounds, living and working in different areas of the kind of broader social arena. In terms of the actual days, we broke it up. So we started off we with the members of the public, we sort of contacted them in advance and took them through a very gentle sort of introduction about what the term AI meant. Um, and also what we would and wouldn't be talking about on the day. So we tried to keep it very practical around actual instances of algorithmic decision making and uses of AI that were already in people's lives. And so we steered away from the more existential killer robots and humanity being wiped out area, which we kind of felt it's all very well for the press to deal with that, but it's not actually very useful. Um, we then worked people on the day. We had always had a setting the scene speaker to kind of bring some of the topics there. We then took people through a process of talking about their personal hopes and fears, what they thought, what they felt, what they wanted to say about AI at the beginning. And then we started more collective work in small groups of tables, and going from people's hopes and fears, often around particular topics of AI, sort of transport, health, education, those kinds of things. And then also what their expectations were. What did they want to see AI do at that point to deliver benefit to society? We tweaked and iterated the formats across the five as we learnt from doing each one in different places. There were slight strengths. And in the last three, we found what was really good was to create little breakout groups around lunchtime, which we called sort of lunchtime learning sessions, where members of the public could talk to actual AI innovators, and the AI innovators could ask specific questions that interested them about, well, what does somebody who's not doesn't look or feel like me or share my experience feel about this thing that I'm interested in. And then in the afternoon, we moved into a much more free-flowing discussion. We brought the experts and the non-experts more together to kind of discuss things in a more lively debate. And we usually ended up getting people to move around a series of kind of topics, but very particular to the locality. So each one, it was very much about what can AI do here in this place, this community or this series of communities. And then, as you'll see from out of that, we during the day we had visual scribes doing illustrations to capture the flow of discussion as well as some of the key topics that arose. And we also had a video team who were pulling people out for short bits to do little interviews. So we have five PDFs that can be downloaded from the website, which have each of them sort of follow the discussions and the topics of the day. But we also have 25 videos of people from across the UK responding to roughly five questions. So each video is several people responding to a particular question. But from that, it's a very interesting resource because you can see how people's views shifted from when we started in March 24 to how things have evolved over the sort of almost a year and a half when we finished in London in July. So those are all freely available to download from the Academy's website, which we'll share with you at the end of the day. In terms of some of the things, what we think makes this series of summits unique in terms of the kind of deliberative practice that's been happening, we did take this idea of a place-based approach, which is very important to the Academy as it builds out its regional hubs and its work both nationally and internationally. So bringing people together to discuss topics that are locally relevant as well as nationally relevant. The other aspect, obviously, the inclusivity. We've worked very, very hard to make sure that a range, not only of members of the public, were involved. So not only that kind of demographic diversity, but also a diversity of expertise was in the room as well. Again, the particular nature of the way we constructed these deliberations, that it wasn't just about sampling what the public think about a topic, but it was about creating a space of deliberation between experts and non-experts, something that we thought really enabled a mutual listening and mutual respect and a reciprocal exchange in the end. And then also another sort of important aspect was that whilst we're all, I think, possibly deeply skeptical of AI, if we've been involved in it for a long time. I've been doing work in and around AI since the late 1990s, and so many of these arguments we're hearing today are very well rehearsed across a number of different time frames. But I think one of the key things, it's very easy to only dwell on the negative, and one of the things we wanted to really do was say, it's more challenging in some respects to focus on, well, what could the positive ones really be beyond the hype, beyond the fluff of the marketing exercises that we're all exposed to? How do we engage people to really think through, well, what could this do, and why would it be beneficial, and if it is, safe and responsible? And I think this is something we've tried really hard to do in this series, is not just dwell on the negative aspects, but to really try and think, well, if this thing is coming, and there should be no inevitability about it, for sure. But if it is coming, how do we help shape the positive uses of AI as we go forwards? I'm just going to move on. There's a lot that we heard from participants on the day. Some of the things that, some of the insights we've already begun to weave into the Academy's policy advice that it prepares for government and public bodies. And the 5 of these key insights, I'm sure these will probably be no surprise, but it's always good to see that they are backing up other work. For instance, the public attitudes to AI work that the Ada Lovelace Foundation, or Institute, sorry, released about 6 months ago. So this thing, people do want, as Gavin said earlier, people do want to be involved. They want to be part of the deliberation, not necessarily to make the decisions themselves, but to be heard and for their voices to count in decision making, I think is a really big thing that we've heard here. Absolutely, the human oversight and connection issue. People are concerned not only about local regulation, they want to see regulation aligned with international bodies. And this flows very much into the next bit. We've got a strong sense from people. They are absolutely behind the idea of fairness, that the benefit must it must not flow to a few, but it must really reduce inequalities, not just here, but internationally as well. This is something that came up again and again. People don't just want to see, the UK benefit or the West benefit, but they want to see if AI is going to really work, it has to work for everyone everywhere. And of course, the environmental impacts as people's understanding of the scale and the scope of things like the growth of data centers and the use of power, the use of fresh water to cool those data centers. People are very concerned about the environmental impacts, not to mention the extraordinary impact from the mining and the production of the computers that power these networks, and all the other aspects of the network that have to be in place, and which have major environmental impacts. Um, Again, sort of locally, we had different topics in different places, but in Belfast, we were really one of the key topics was this idea of AI assurance. So how do we enable transparency? How are people assured that it is safe, it is responsible, it has been built and operated ethically? In Glasgow, we focused a lot on health and health inequalities, which are a particular feature of how the NHS is spread out in Scotland, across, some very challenging geography, as well as, different pockets of wealth and access in that geographic location. In Liverpool, there was a lot of discussion uh, about useful and successful cases of AI being operated. We also talked a lot about transport in that particular place. There's a lovely quote here that someone in Liverpool said about they were talking about the data that's being collected by the local public transit system, and they were thinking very much that we know that this data is of enormous interest to the large companies in Silicon Valley, but they're not there. They want the data, but they don't care about the problems that people in the Northwest have about actually utilizing public transport and other systems. In Swansea, there were some really lovely conversations about how we should learn from the past. A city that's been through several waves of industrialization and deindustrialization, and is close to one of the corridors where the government would like to stimulate AI growth, and thinking, well, are we going to see yet another repeat of the past in terms of people being replaced in terms of jobs and access to life chances, or are we going to actually do something different this time? And lastly, in London, something that came up a lot is we're now really talking about AI as part of the overall infrastructure of how our society operates, and that whilst it's often sold as a panacea or a fix-all, it's actually not. It's going to be something which is it's going to operate in different ways in different aspects of the infrastructure, and these are complexities we shouldn't try and gloss over or overly simplify. There were benefits that we identified from the feedback we got from all of these for pretty much everybody, for members of the public, for the academy, for stakeholders. I'll move through this quite quickly so we've got time to discuss things. But we have lots of quotes from people about what mattered to them about taking part, the opportunity to share, feeling that their views were both listened to on the day, but also the way we captured and have been sharing people's views, that this is meaningful to people as well. The access to AI experts and to people building the technology. These are all really important things to members of the public, which they shared with us as key benefits to them in taking part. From our stakeholders, both the innovators and people involved in regulation and policy making, they also shared uh, their feelings about what taking part in this kind of deliberation, and often it's a sort of a reality or a reality check or a sense check that we often speak in our own little echo chambers, and having access to people whose life experiences can be fundamentally different to yours is a great way to check yourself and check your own privilege, etc. And lastly, for the academy, it's the public dialogue function is new at the academy. This is really our first major series coming out of it. So, understanding what does this mean for a national academy to engage the public, to engage people outside of the professional world of engineering, and understand and improve and add, and in some ways ground truth, the expert opinion that we are, in our policy teams, providing to government and other public bodies. So these are some of the key things that have come out of it. Couple of quick quotes. I'll move past these very quickly because we're almost out of time. And just a couple of things, some of the things that people said they really liked about both the format, the structure of the day, the way that we kind of flowed people very gently. We built their confidence if they were new to the topic, so that by the end of the day, they were, people who perhaps come from a very different walk of life are quite happy to talk to a professor of AI at Oxford or Cambridge or wherever it was, and that they felt that they were heard. These were really important things. Other things here, I think I've pretty much talked about. The last bit, though, is really quite interesting. Lots of people told us that they learnt about AI in this, but something that's really important to us is that our work in public dialogue, it's about listening. It's about not us telling people things or educating them. It's about the academy listening. We're not a nudge. We're not doing behavior change with dialogue. We're trying to listen to people and speaking and sharing expertise as and when it's appropriate. So for us, this is something that we found people also really, really picked up on and enjoyed in the process. A couple of other small quotes from some of our responses. I mean, we got 55% response rate in feedback, which we're very proud of. It's really, really rather good. So people definitely enjoyed it and wanted to tell us they enjoyed it, which was really nice. As I said, we've sharing the insights. We plan to do more work about what we heard specifically, but also things like this about sharing the methodologies, what we learned, what did and didn't work, what worked better, perhaps, rather than didn't work. And we're doing that in a number of different ways, both with our colleagues in the academy, but we'll also be doing a series of posts about our reflections as we go forwards. So thank you. If you want to access the summit's webpage, we have a little link here, and all the 25 videos of people sharing their views, their hopes, their fears, their expectations around AI, and their experiences, why they wanted to be part of a public deliberation. Those videos are all available both on the websites, but we also have a specific playlist on the Academy YouTube account there. Thank you very much.